In my very first month of running my agency Nitto, I was able to generate $1,820. That comes from securing a part-time role at my previous company to implement AI flows and 2 Upwork clients, including one though that turned into an absolute nightmare just for 20 bucks. However, I was also able to secure a 25% equity deal with a company that I've been working with. It's been a month full of wins, mistakes, and big decisions. So let me walk you through exactly what all happened and also why I've decided to go all in on my SaaS instead of splitting my focus. So as a quick backstory, I left my stable contract and started my agency Nitto. My focus has been on automation and SaaS. I have, however, shifted my focus slightly towards my own SaaS product called PanelDesk, which I'll dive into in just a bit. This month has been about testing things, taking on small clients, and just figuring out my direction, but honestly, just kind of settling in to this new phase. In terms of money, as I mentioned, I made $1,820 this month, and to break that down, $1,350 came from the part-time work that I did to implement the AI flows in my previous company, $450 from a client from Upwork to implement automations, and then another guy from Upwork for 20 bucks, which ended up being a bit of a nightmare. Now, the reason why this is on the lower side of things is purely just because I didn't push so hard on the Upwork applications. A big part of this month was spent on securing that equity deal and then also deciding on if I should push harder on the Upwork applications or focus on my own SaaS. And after some back and forth, I've ultimately decided to go forward with my own SaaS product. To quickly touch on the Upwork client, the $20 guy that I took on was purely just for the review. However, I do regret that because it was such a mistake. He ended up scope creeping like crazy, delaying the project, and was just a pain in the ass to work with. And I should have seen the red flags because other freelancers left reviews saying exactly that. Luckily, the client for $450 was much better and a decent project. Keep in mind that I only applied to 16 Upwork jobs. So even though I wasn't pushing it as hard, it shows that there is potential. My takeaway from all this is even though that the reviews are important early on, I wouldn't sacrifice my sanity just to get them. I wouldn't work with an extremely low paying client like this again just to get it. Because the amount of time that I spent on this guy's automation, I could have spent applying to new Upwork jobs and just securing another client instead that one is more pleasant to work with and is paying better. So if the client profile has red flags, I'm just gonna trust it and steer clear of that client. Now, the SaaS that I'm building, it's called PanelDesk, and I'm not gonna dive too deep into it, but ultimately, it's just a quoting to job card to invoicing system for panel beaters with a small little twist. This month, I realized something very important, and that is just that I don't want to split my focus 50-50 between my automation clients and the SaaS that I'm building. That just doesn't work for me. So I'm going to focus 100% on the SaaS that I'm building, get PanelDesk through to a testing phase, somewhere where it's a little bit more stable, and once it's there, then I can focus on either bringing in more automation clients or just reevaluating where I'm at and then deciding on what will be the next best move. However, the idea for PanelDesk is that if I can get it to a point where it can be a solid foundation of income, then that can fuel my other ventures, be it scaling Nitto, building new products, or exploring bigger opportunities. My goal for this is to have it ready by mid to end of October, and then from there we'll just scale it and acquire more users. The biggest deal of the month though came from the 25% equity deal that I was able to secure, along with a small retainer just to keep things a little bit more consistent. Now, here's the interesting part. It wasn't just the projects that I delivered to them beforehand that got me the deal. The biggest factor that contributed to all of this was something that I built for them without them even knowing. I took on that risk and I built it out, and that ended up being the exact reason why I secured the equity deal. I'll dive into the full story in a separate video because I believe there's a lot to learn in taking calculated risks as a freelancer or agency owner. But long story short, it worked out and it's a massive milestone for me. Outside of business, I was able to spend a bit more time with my parents, which I don't usually do as I've always been just so focused on working. So it was really a good way to reset and I guess just take things a little bit easier. So while this first month wasn't about chasing every possible client, it was rather about getting clarity, locking in my direction, and staying close to those who matter most. So with that, my focus right now is pretty simple. Over the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'll focus on getting PanelDesk finished and launched. And at the same time, I'll keep building out tech for the company that I've secured equity in. Those are the 2 things that matter most right now, and I'm going all in on them. If you want to follow along on my journey, please consider subscribing. I'll keep sharing the wins, the mistakes, and the real numbers every month. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next update.